Scotty, my friend, I appreciate you for coming on. I don't think this is the circumstances you would like to come on for. With what happened last night with Inter Miami and Nashville SC, which we're going to break down what happened and where they go from here. It kind of seems like maybe they are a little bit directionless after this early exit. But before we get into any of that, what were your thoughts about what happened last night?
So frustratingly predictable that if they were going to not show up and if they were going to lose, it would look exactly like it did. And the fact that that's exactly how it ended up looking, I thought was incredibly frustrating. We will get into, I'm sure, all of the dynamics at play here and the expectations and Mascherano and everything. But just the idea that they said this is what we want to do and we want to be champions of this tournament, and to go out looking like they're trying to survive their first match was, like, I don't mean to be rude, but it was pitiful. It was kind of pathetic. And like, if that was the mindset they were going to show, there was no way they were going to get deep in this tournament, even if they did find a way to get through Nashville. So, and then also I just say, like, and I say this as a compliment to Nashville, they did not play their best over the last two games, and Inter Miami still lost.
MLS Moves is presented by FanDuel, our proud sponsor of the channel. And I also want to say, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of our videos. Now, back to the video.
It's not even like they lost to a buzzsaw or a fantastic team. Not that Nashville can't be that, but they weren't over these 180 minutes. And so, like, it's just so frustrating, so disappointing, and I think emotional for everyone that really built hype for this run.
Well, I want to say that in sports, the better team doesn't always win, right? Sometimes unfortunate things can happen, and that's what's so great about sports, right? It's kind of unpredictable. But credit to Nashville SC for beating Inter Miami in their first matchup in this tournament, Miami's. So let's talk about what went wrong with Inter Miami. I don't even want to really talk about the first game because I think it was a disaster in general. Like, this was essentially, the first game was X'd out, right? It's like a clean slate for both teams. The game was going to be decided in leg 2 because it was a 0-0 draw. Now, obviously, Inter Miami was at a disadvantage because they needed to score 2 goals if Nashville scored 1 goal because of the away goal difference. So there was a little bit of pressure heading into this game. The only way it would have went to extra time is if it ended in a 0-0 draw in regular time. But, I mean, there's just so much to dissect. The first thing that I kind of thought Miami might be in trouble was when Silvetti was on the bench. I thought Silvetti has been, honestly, any time that they played well this year, Silvetti's been on the pitch. And so when he started on the bench, I was a little skeptical about, okay, what are they doing? I thought that Javier Mascherano was going to throw the kitchen sink at this one and do everything he possibly could do to win this game, because it is an elimination game. This is it. If you lose, you're done. And it just felt like Mascherano, he treated this second leg like it was the first leg, in my opinion.
I know. I think you absolutely nailed it. And you put it better than I did or could have. Like, this is a game to throw the kitchen sink at, and they played it like they already had a 2-goal lead and they just wanted to save energy and save their legs and not give up, like a massive problem. And of course they didn't. They had a 1-goal lead that really was only half a goal lead, because if you give one up going the other way, then you're out. So it was pitiful. The game plan, the way they thought this game was going to go was, we're going to score a goal in the first 10, 15 minutes, which they did. Then we're just going to pass the ball around the back and try and force Nashville to come out of their game plan, and maybe we'll hit one and kill it off, but we're not going to go for the jugular. We're not going to go up 2 or 3 goals early. We're not going to make this an easy game for ourselves. They never showed that sort of intensity or intention. And I think maybe something that wasn't super obvious for people watching on TV, but clearly played a role in the second half, was it was really raining. It was raining all day. The field was really wet. And so you should have known on the field that everyone is going to get more tired in the second half. And that should have added more intensity to kill the game off early, so that you weren't going to be sort of hoping to pull off a comeback late when everyone's tired and everyone's legs were sort of gone. And like, it just felt like a mistake of a game plan from the minute Messi scored the first goal. And of course, like I say it from that moment, but the game plan was go hard to get that early goal and then sit back. That was the game plan all week. And it's just the lack of throwing the kitchen sink at this thing. So it's a great way. It's a great phrase you use, but it's just so disappointing.
Well, I thought the game changed too. I do want to say, like, after maybe the first, I want to say 15 to 20 minutes, the game kind of changed a little bit where Miami was a lot more reserved, conservative, really weren't trying to play that attacking style of ball. And I did think that Sergio Reguilón made a difference in the attack on the left side, because when Noah Allen plays, they don't really do much on the left side. And it was to the point, Scotty, to where I didn't even notice Facundo Mora in this game because they weren't going on that right side hardly at all. But when Sergio Reguilón went down, they did start to go more on that right side, and he became more, noticeable. But I did think Sergio Reguilón gave this team a different dynamic when he played. And my God, he is just completely cursed. He gets injured 40 minutes in, looks like a hamstring injury after he just came back from a knee injury. I think his first appearance was against Charlotte FC last Saturday. And I thought that they could maybe show some resemblance of the dangerous attack we saw in the playoffs with the attacking option on the left side. But he was subbed out, and then they were playing ultra conservative. And like you said, even in the 70th minute, I remember watching when they were down and Espinosa scored that goal in the 72nd minute. They were still, there was no urgency. I saw Mikael have the ball like 20 times where he's just casually passing back to Dane St. Clair, or passing it out wide to Noah Allen, or passing it to Gonzalo Lujan, like just all this stuff. And it just felt like they were never in a dire moment. Like there just was no urgency whatsoever. It's like they didn't want to win.
It's why I brought up the heavy legs and the rain and the field being heavier. Is like I understand everyone is exhausted in the last 15 minutes, but that's why your mentality has to be to win the game in the first half an hour. And so there are so many individual moments in this game. And you mentioned Sergio Reguilón. You mentioned they did get ultra conservative. I thought it was as soon as they scored the first goal. I wouldn't even have said 20 minutes. I thought the Silvetti sub in was actually a disaster, not because of Silvetti, but by taking Talasco Segovia off out of the midfield and adding an attacker, you lost the midfield. Like there was certainly individual moments that changed the nature of this game. But I think it comes back to sort of the bigger picture is, why aren't you throwing the kitchen sink so that you're up 3-0, so that when something changes against you, it's not going to send you home. And I know, I respect wanting to throw out the first game, but like that should have been the intention from minute 1 in Nashville, not the intention for the final 20 minutes in Miami in leg 2. And so the fact that you let it get to that point, to me, is the bigger issue. And so when we talk about Mascherano, when we talk about what does this team become moving forward, it is like, why are you making those types of decisions? How could you be making those types of decisions? And that's where, again, the frustration is. And I wanted to mention Nashville not playing that well, even though I do think they're a good team, and I don't want to discredit them. It's not like you were playing well and you ran into a buzzsaw and you need the luck to go your way. It wasn't that type of two-legged tie. If you had played well and aggressive, you could have won this game, or this tie 4-5-1. And I'm sure the same for Nashville. Again, I don't want to disrespect Nashville, but from Miami's perspective, they could have scored 3, 4, 5 goals in this series if they had really gone for it. They never went for it, and they left themselves open for one terrible moment to send them home. And it's just so disappointing based on everything we've talked about since Jorge Mas had that infamous tweet and everything like that. So,
well, I want to say this too. If I had told you prior to this series starting that Hani Mukhtar and Sam Surridge wouldn't score a single goal in the first 2 legs or either game, if I told you that, would you have thought Miami was going to lose this series?
No chance. There's no chance.
Yeah. Sam Surridge is, I think, if he's not leading the Golden Boot race in MLS, he's top 3, top 4. I mean, he was having a good season. I think the last 2 legs, more specifically last night's game, was the worst game he's played all season. He was like a ghost. He did nothing in this game. He looked completely out of sort. He had some bad touches, no good passes, I don't even think he had a shot in this game. Maybe he had one, but I don't think he did. Hani Mukhtar missed a sitter of his life. I mean, my guy sent that one to the rafters, right? And then also, if I told you, okay, let's broaden it a little bit. If I told you Nashville scored 1 goal in the 2 legs in general, would you thought Miami was going to lose this series?
No chance.
No chance. So, okay, which I want to get more into this about the offseason because this is a big deal. Like, I think that there needs to be more attention about this failure. Would you say that this is a bigger failure than the Atlanta United 2024 first round? It wasn't a sweep, but the exit. Is this a more disappointing performance than that 2024 Atlanta loss?
Like from a big picture perspective, it's probably the same. But that series felt like everything went against Inter Miami. It was some great goalkeeping play by Brad Guzan, and Yannick Bright and Sergio Busquets got injured at the same time. And like it was sort of all crumbling at once in a way that the gods just didn't like you. This felt like a self-inflicted philosophical decision by Inter Miami to play it safe and secure and conservative. And it was so preventable that this, I think, hurts more than that. In a very serious way. Like it is just so self-inflicted compared to that series. So very disappointing, but like for very different reasons.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into it. So I'll say this. I think it's more disappointing. And the reason I say that is because I didn't set out the expectations for this team this year. The owner did. So let's go ahead and bring this up of what Jorge Mas said in the offseason. This was like 8 days after they won MLS Cup. He said, post-championship reflection, what an epic run to become MLS Cup champions. Our last 9 games was an example of the excellence we expect. 33 goals, a plus 25 goal differential. Where the hell's that at this year, by the way? And in moments, the best football we've ever played. But the best version of your Inter Miami is yet to come. We cannot and will not stay static. We promise our fans, La Familia, that we will reload in 2026. And our primary goal is to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup and qualify for the FIFA Club World Cup. Stay tuned as the bar is reset to a higher level. And as I say, adelante y vamos. So that was what the owner said. And Scotty, they lost the first round that they played in this tournament. They lost the first round. They didn't lose the quarterfinals. They didn't lose the semifinals. They didn't lose the final. His goal was to win the entire thing. And he came up, what? He came 5 games short. Like he wasn't even close. Like they were 5 games away from lifting this trophy. They didn't win a single game. They got bounced in the first round. So I say, and I'll give you the floor here in a second, I say that this is a bigger disappointment because the owner came out and said, we want to qualify for the FIFA World Cup. We want to win CONCACAF Champions Cup. It's almost like he's, I don't want to say devaluing, but kind of like shooing away like the MLS Cup. Like, yeah, that was nice, but CONCACAF Champions Cup is a much bigger deal. We're going to try to win that now.
I am conflicted on this one because, listen, I love the ambition. I love that this is like the stated goal. I will say in 2024, they did talk about winning 4 trophies, and then obviously it only won the Supporter Shield. And so it's not that they didn't have similar sort of vocal expectations for themselves. But you're right. This is, I think, is the most profound declaration of what we want. And I think you're right. It was them saying the MLS Cup is not good enough. It's fun. It was great. We're really excited, but it's not enough for what we want. We're going to do a lot to make sure that we can go compete for this trophy. And again, I'm not going to say anything bad about Jorge Mas because I thought they backed it up in the offseason and they went out and signed Berterame and Ajala and Dane St. Clair, and they brought back Tadeo Allende, and they made some really big moves that I think everyone applauded at the time. And that is the job of the ownership in the front office. And it felt like all of the ambition, all of the anticipation, all of the urgency disappears as soon as you get to the coaching staff and as soon as you get to the on-field product, which is really, to me, the huge disconnect that causes all the problems and the thing that should be really looked at and scrutinized very closely. Because, again, I look at this and it's, as a fan, you love this. You couldn't want anything more from your ownership. And it's not like they cheaped out. They really tried their best from a spend money perspective to try and get this team in a good spot to win. And then we saw what happened. Like,
and that's why I think that this is why it's worse. I mean, you got to think about this. There's just so much to talk about. I mean, we could probably go 3 hours talking about this, but just like the entire blueprint of this offseason was to win this trophy. I mean, they went and spent 15, $16 million on Bertarame. You came on and talked to me about this when it happened a couple months ago, and that's for nothing. They signed him. I heard my friend Daniel Granada talk about this on Battered Herons last night, that they decided to not wait for the summer to get a DP. They went all in and got a DP striker now from Liga MX because they thought maybe his experience against those teams would be beneficial in this tournament because he's not going to be intimidated by people he's used to playing against. And it was a total abject failure. Like, it did not pan out in their direction. So now you've allocated all these resources, and maybe you know the number specifically, but I want to say maybe 225, 250,000 in GAM they have left. So they put all the.
It's way less than that.
It's less than that?
20,000,
okay.
17,000.
Okay, 17,000.
Like, they're out.
And so they put all their chips in the middle of the table, and it failed miserably. So they're not going to really have any, or they're not going to have any flexibility to do anything this summer unless they get rid of some people, which I don't think that's going to happen, because they were pretty much all in on this team. And it just makes it's almost like if they had rolled out a similar team, Scotty, to what they had last year, minus maybe Busquets and Alba. Maybe they added like Ayala and Mikael, but didn't sign. They didn't sign Bertarame. Maybe this would be more understanding. Like, you'd be like, okay, well, they're going to try, but they're not really, they're waiting till the summer. But just because of what they did, I just think this makes this thing amplified and like tenfold worse than it should have been.
That's a very convincing point. I think they shot every shot they had to try and get this roster together. And actually, like, I think you've convinced me. I think this is worse than what happened against Atlanta, because you're right. And we saw with LA Galaxy, when you win the MLS Cup, it really takes away your ability to build a team the next year. Well, Inter Miami built so much space for themselves with allocation money, with roster flexibility, that they were still able to build a strong team this year. But they had to spend everything in order to create this team, and they are not going to have the flexibility moving forward. I don't want to say retool, because if you can break things down, you can retool. And I think they did a decent job of that last summer. So maybe it is within them. But, like, I just don't know how you look at the results that this team has gotten, not just from a scoreboard perspective, but how they've looked, how the strikers looked, how the team has gelled, how the offense looks, and think to yourself, this is going to get us where we want to be. I do feel bad for Bertarame, because you're right. It is a failure of a signing already, and it's sort of unfair to a player as a human being to make that judgment after 6 games. But, like, that is the nature of what this was. So you've convinced me. I think you're probably right. This is worse than what happened to Atlanta, or against Atlanta.
Well, it's just because it's like, I think that just thinking about it, and I'm an outside perspective. I'm not a fan of any team. This is just the way I see it. It's like you're told that your entire season essentially rides on this tournament. We're only 1 month in, Scotty, to the season, and you're already out. So it's almost like your entire season just got completely deflated, whereas the Atlanta series was towards the end of the year. So you're already kind of winding down anyway. The season literally just started, and you're already deflated because of how bad and embarrassing this was. And to your point, it wasn't like a buzzsaw. Like, they didn't get embarrassed or pantsed at Nashville or Nashville at their place. But it doesn't really matter if you get smoked or if it's a loss. A loss is a loss, and you get eliminated. So it's like, and this is like kind of one of the next things I want to talk about is we're going to get into whose fault it is, because I think we probably both agree with whose fault it is. But it's almost like, where do they go from here? Because an MLS Cup obviously is a big trophy, but you've already done that. I don't think that wasn't what the sights were set for in 2026 for this team.
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning. It's like the Messi era Inter Miami can be as good as any era of any MLS team, I think, ever. You think about the late 2010s Toronto and the MLS Cup and what they were able to accomplish with the sports show. Like, Inter Miami will be able to match all of those things and maybe even be sort of near the top of what anyone has accomplished. But the goal was to be in a different tier entirely, to establish yourself as the dominant team in CONCACAF, to establish yourself as the dominant team in MLS. And, like, I don't think it's going to happen. And that's the disappointment.
Yeah, and I think that as a fan for you, right? Because they lost, are you deflated? Like, how are you feeling? I mean, do you feel like the season's lost already? I mean, I know you want to win MLS Cup and Supporter Shield because this is your team, but like when you were told by the owner that this is the trophy that you want to win and you just lose like this, does it deflate you? Like, are you kind of like, I don't want to say disinterested because I know you're going to watch the games, but do you feel like the season is kind of lost at this point?
The next 6 months or until the end, until the World Cup, I think is going to feel that way because we know Messi and DePaul and Dane St. Clair, like they're going to be focused on getting themselves ready for the World Cup. They're not going to be taking the MLS as seriously. And of course, for Inter Miami, as you've already mentioned, winning the Supporter Shield has been there, done that. And so until you get to the point where the games really start to matter again, which is going to be post World Cup, like I do think it's incredibly deflating. And now we get into a position where even if this had happened later in this tournament, you still feel like if your team is showing something promising and fantastic, like, okay, maybe we can translate that into the next thing. The way this ended was so sort of unimpressive and pitiful that you don't look forward to the next game, and they're going to play New York City this weekend, and it's like Messi's going to run around and he might score 2 goals, and it's like, but then the next weekend it's going to be him focusing on Argentina, and then 2 weeks from later he's going to take the game off because he doesn't want to have too many minutes, and it is going to be sort of a deflating time, and I hope Inter Miami responds to that well because I think maybe that means you can play the kids a little more and there's an opportunity to expand your depth. Like there are positive ways you can take this situation, but I'll be honest, I don't trust this coaching staff to do that either. So it's like still processing how frustrating this is. And so I apologize. I don't have this sort of more
you're
handy
good
with the response, but it is very deflating.
Well, okay, so to the point of like who's at to blame for this, I'm assuming you and I agree that it's Mascherano, right? He's the main person to blame for this situation. So that makes me question this. So here wants me to pose this question for you about his security of his job. I was talking to some friends and they were saying, well, Inter Miami friends of mine, they were saying, well, if he doesn't win Champions Cup or loses in the semifinals, maybe they would think about moving off of him or something like that. I don't think anyone expected them to lose in the round of 16, their first series. Do you think there's any chance they fire him? I mean, I did hear you say this last night on your podcast. I did hear you say that even though the last playoffs, they played really well, but not because of him. It was more of just like a great run and he just kind of was in the seat, right? Like it wasn't because he did anything spectacular. Honestly, you could make an argument that if Suarez hadn't got suspended, that whole thing could have looked a lot different, right? So where do you stand on Mascherano right now? Do you want him fired? Do you think he'll get fired? Like what's your stance on his security right now?
Well, I will say it's been almost a year since I've come to the conclusion that he's not a particularly good coach and that I would think Inter Miami could do a lot better. So I would certainly be happy if he was out. But I don't think this ownership group is reactionary in that sense. I think they are, at least what we saw with Phil Neville, what we saw earlier on in Inter Miami history, they're willing to give guys real time to sort of course correct. So I don't think that he's on the hot seat. I don't think they're going to make a reactionary decision. But I also want to say that they're not going to fire him without Messi being on board with that. And like I think that is so unpredictable because he doesn't talk to the media very often. Like it is really hard to understand or hard to get an insight into what he thinks of the coaching staff. So like I think it's very unpredictable. But I would be surprised if we saw him get fired anytime soon.
Well, I want to point this out too because I am a Barcelona fan. I just want to point out during Messi's time at Barcelona, he had, just want to count this out real quick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 managers at Barcelona. So he's not foreign to having a turnstile of managers. And I think he's okay if they don't meet expectations. Not that Barcelona was, asking what his opinion or his approval to fire someone, but I do think maybe he had a little say if they wanted to keep or get rid of somebody. So he had 8 different coaches, and Tata Martino got fired after his first full year because of the Atlanta United, and we just pretty much agree that this is worse than that. And there's just so many good coaches on the market. Now, I don't know. I don't think I've ever talked to you about this specifically, but I have always thought the perfect replacement for Mascherano would be Xavi, because I think I like his style of play. I thought he was better at Barcelona than people thought he was. I think he was kind of built the foundation for that great run they had the last couple of years. He really set up Lamine Yamal to shine, play him early. And he's just a better coach than Javier Mascherano. I mean, he's done it at a higher level. And I think that they need a coach that Messi respects, not just his friend. I think Xavi would be one of those guys, kind of like Tata Martino, that would tell him the honest truth. And I just think, and even if they don't hire him, there's other options. I just think with the way this team has under-delivered, they have to fire. Heads have to roll. Like, there's just no way. You can, if there was I don't know, Scotty, if you support any other team around the world, but any other big club in the world, if they got bounces early in the UEFA Champions League or Copa Libertadores, whatever it was, their coach would 100% be fired after this. There is no exceptions. Everyone, the only coach who could survive this in the entire world would be Pep Guardiola. He's the only one in the entire world who could survive a fumble like this. So, and you know what? Sorry to go on this tangent, but if they were to fire him and hire someone else, I guarantee you that would probably rejuvenate the fan base.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir. I agree with you 100%. I think I actually questioned Mascherano's ability to be a coach, period. Like, I don't think he has much of a track record to go on as far as us feeling confident he knows what he's doing at all. And I think with the underperformance of the talent on this roster from the day he got here, and that includes winning an MLS Cup, I think any coach that's a real coach would get way more out of this team and not just rejuvenate the fan base, but rejuvenate the players just through the locker room. I can't understate how much I would love to get a Xavi, who is a real coach. And there's 5 other names we could talk about. I don't want to put pressure on Inter Miami to go get that specific name or anything like that, but I think if you saw what this team and this talent looked like with a coach that understood how a striker is supposed to play or how to get attacking offense from the left wing when you don't have Jordi Alba and not having to rely on a super world-class talent in order to do anything down the left side or the right side for that matter, I think this team would look so much better, because I do think they're still the most talented team in the league on paper, and they just never perform to that level, or very rarely perform to that level, because they're just never set up in a way that allows them to be dominant like that.
Well, and, I have thought this since he's taken over, that they live and die by Messi. Like, that's just what they play through him. And look, he's your best player. Of course, you're going to play through him, or you're going to rely on him heavily. But the problem is that just the way they play, they rely too much on him.
But just I want to make a distinction, because it's not that they rely on him and they do everything they can to support him. They do everything they can to be defensively sound and then still just ask him to go score the goals. Like, it's not even like they are building their team in support of Messi to make Messi his absolute best or to make him as efficient as possible. They just rely on him to be great, to create offense. And then the rest of the team is just designed to sort of settle in and get a one goal, allow one goal and we win 2-1 because Messi's fantastic. Or we win 1-0. They don't even build the team to maximize what Messi is. It is relying on your star to overcome your tactical inefficiencies or deficiencies that, I think is actually a better reflection of what's actually going on, because you're right, they are ultra dependent on him, but not because they build everything through him, but because they don't build anything and they just expect him to make it happen out of nothing.
And let me clarify, that's kind of what I mean, is that they expect him to do the unthinkable and hope he makes, just miracles happen with little help around him. And I did think it'd be a little easier with some of the moves they made, but it's when I remember Tata Martino playing, and obviously he had his own deficiencies as a manager, but Scotty, other people were playing very well. Luis Suarez, who is obviously a shell of his former self, scored 21 goals under Tata Martino. Matias Rojas, I think, scored 7 or 8 off the goal or off the bench. Leo Campana scored 8 or 9 off the bench. Like there were goals. And it felt like they didn't have to rely just on Messi. They had so many other players around them that were doing things and contributing. That's not how Mascherano plays. I feel like Mascherano is ultra conservative, defensive oriented, and then in the attack, give Messi the ball and hope to God something happens.
It's exactly right. I was doing this exercise with my co-host maybe 2 weeks ago. We looked at all the different formations and style of play Tata Martino put out, and it was like you missed Messi for half the games that year, and you had to go into every game, whether you had him or not, figuring out a different way to win, especially when you didn't have him. And it's like that's what coaching is. And what Mascherano has done is said, I'm just going to play Messi and my superstars every single game, and we're going to play the same style. It's not even a particularly good style. It's kind of archaic. And we're just going to like brunt through every single game. And it's such little coaching like nuance to it. It's like I really can't underestimate how I think a real coach would get so much more out of this team, because there just feels like such little coaching going on from Javier Mascherano from a like game plan setup every single time. It's very predictable.
Okay, Scotty. So, are Inter Miami going to make a move?
You know, I was having this conversation last night. Just sort of early thoughts. I am worried about Berterame. We had a conversation when Berterame signed, and I thought, man, the 35 goals feels like realistic when you talk about his efficiency in Mexico, and you add on Messi giving him service. But what we've seen so far is Messi and Berterame have no chemistry. And so I think the idea that he's going to get better service is gone, which means you should expect fewer goals from him. And so maybe they will build into it. I don't want to take that off the table, but I wouldn't bet on that at this point. And so you then ask yourself, okay, are we done as a project with Messi? Not done, but is this what we're going to be with Messi for the last couple of years of his tenure? And that's the question they have to ask themselves. I do think they have shown their ability to retool. I thought they did a solid job of that last year when they brought in Rodrigo de Paul and they created space to bring in Berterame this year, and you know all the guys that they brought in free agency. Like they have pivoted, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do it again. I really don't.
Do you think they're going to make a coaching change soon, or do you think because I mean I know you would hope they would, but like I just don't really know how Javier Mascherano can save his job. I mean I don't think that this team is going to win MLS Cup this year the way that they're playing, and I mean obviously they have the opportunity to get hot to be the best team in the league, like you talked about, like the talent wise, but like I said, I feel like they're kind of a lost cause right now, and the fan base is deflated. And how about this? We didn't even mention this. They didn't even get a chance to play in their new stadium for the Champions Cup. They didn't even get a chance. If they'd won this game and the series, their next round would have been, at least the one leg would have been at the new Miami Freedom Park in Miami. So that's out the window. That's not happening. In 2027 would be the next time they'll be able to do that. So if it were me, I'd fire Mascherano now, and I would salvage the season, because at least if you hire Xavi, which I think they wanted to hire Xavi the first time, like 2025 after Martino left, they just couldn't agree to terms. I think they didn't offer him nearly enough money of what he would want. But I would hire him, and I think that would really rejuvenate the fan base, and I think he's a great coach, and I think he would take this job because it's Miami, it's Messi, there's relationship there. That's what I would personally do, is I would fire Mascherano. I don't care if you won MLS Cup. That means nothing to me. Who cares about what you did in the past? It's what you're doing now.
First of all, I think you lost the goodwill last night that you built from MLS Cup.
Yes.
So I think you should be back on the hot seat, proverbially. I don't think they will, and I will give a little sort of tidbit. I don't know if you know this. I don't know how well this is known, but Jorge Mas looked at Javier Mascherano back in 2019 and 2018 as like a guy he thought could be the coach of Inter Miami. And so he's invested a lot of time and sort of thoughts into thinking that Mascherano would work at Inter Miami. And I can understand how emotionally that would be very difficult to sort of pull the plug on. So I don't think they're going to fire him. I would. I don't think it works. I don't think he understands the project. I don't think, and you do a good job of this. Last year, I thought you did a really good job of this with LAFC, and just sort of expressing how Steve Cherundolo, just didn't fit what LAFC wanted to be as a club. And it's not that he was a terrible coach, but it was like LAFC should be one type of thing. And that's not what he brought to the table, especially as his tenure went on. And I think it's the same thing with Inter Miami and Mascherano. It's like they're in a relationship, and it's not a particularly good relationship, and the chemistry is not right, and they don't actually have the same long-term sort of philosophy to make this work well and to make a great relationship. But there's enough sort of good moments and nostalgia that it's like they're afraid to break up with each other. And I think the answer in that situation is just break up and pull the plug and sort of work towards building something new. So I agree with you. I think they should fire him. I don't think they will.
Well, Scotty, we'll see what happens. Obviously, if you're an Inter Miami fan, it's very deflating to have this conversation March 18th or 19th. It's kind of a buzzkill, man. But we'll see what happens. I mean, there's still a long season left, and there's plenty of time to maybe make some changes. It's bad right now, but there's also time to catch a second wind in that second run during the end of the season. So we'll see what happens. But I'm going to send you a collab so people can see your channel, Drive Pink Dialogue, so that way people can follow you as well. Scotty, I appreciate it, my friend. And guys, if you haven't already, make sure you like this video down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also, we want to thank our sponsor, FanDuel, which presents MLS Moves. We're very, very thankful for them and their help. Scotty, I appreciate it, my friend. And, sorry, hopefully things get better for your team very, very soon.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it from your side.
All right. Until next time, guys, I'll see you all soon.